Have you ever noticed something strange about yourself? You're confident around one person, quiet around another, and completely different when you're with your family. Sometimes you can be funny, intelligent, even fearless. Then you walk into another room, and suddenly you don't even know what to say. So which version is actually you? The uncomfortable answer is all of them. Your personality isn't always expressed in isolation. A huge part of the way you behave depends on the social world you're standing inside. Psychologists have studied this through ideas like social identity, self-concept, and self-monitoring. Your brain constantly reads the situation around you. Who is watching? What is expected? How safe do I feel? What version of myself will be accepted here? And then, you adjust. Not necessarily consciously. You might speak differently, move differently, make different jokes, hide certain opinions, even change the way you think about yourself. This doesn't automatically mean you're fake. It may mean that your identity is more flexible than you imagined. Research on identity has repeatedly shown that social context can influence how people understand and express themselves. Your roles matter. The friend, the employee, the child, the partner, the stranger. Each environment activates a slightly different part of your self-concept. But here's where things become interesting. What happens when you've spent years becoming whatever other people needed you to be? You become extremely good at adaptation, but increasingly bad at answering one simple question. What do I actually want? This is where something psychologists call self-concept clarity becomes important. Self-concept clarity is essentially how clearly, consistently, and confidently you understand who you are. When that clarity is strong, your different roles can coexist. You're still recognizably yourself whether you're at work, with friends, or alone. But when that clarity becomes weak, the boundaries between your roles can start to blur. You don't just behave differently around different people. You may start feeling like a different person. And suddenly, being alone feels strangely uncomfortable. Because when nobody is telling you who to be, you have to decide for yourself. Recent research continues to connect self-concept clarity with social feedback, life experiences, relationships, emotion regulation, and psychological functioning. The evidence is not that one event simply creates an identity problem. Rather, these relationships can work in both directions. And that creates a disturbing possibility. Maybe the person you call the real me isn't a single personality hiding somewhere inside you. Maybe the self is partly constructed and reconstructed every time you enter a different world. But then another question appears. If every environment brings out a different version of you, which version is making your decisions when nobody else is around? That's where this gets much stranger. Because eventually, you may discover that some of your personalities were never really chosen. They were learned. Maybe you learned to become quiet because being outspoken caused conflict. Maybe you became funny because humor made people like you. Maybe you became extremely agreeable because disagreement once felt dangerous. Maybe you became emotionally distant because needing people had consequences. Over time, adaptation becomes automatic. You don't think, I should become this version of myself now. You simply become it. Psychologists have long studied self-monitoring, the tendency to adjust self-presentation according to social situations and expectations. Some people are especially sensitive to these signals. They notice the room. They notice people's reactions. And they adjust themselves accordingly. That ability isn't necessarily bad. In fact, social flexibility can be useful. The problem begins when adaptation becomes so automatic that you lose track of where adaptation ends, and identity begins. You may become incredibly good at reading everyone else, while becoming strangely unfamiliar to yourself. And there's another reason this can happen. Your self-concept isn't built entirely from inside your head. It is also shaped through relationships. The way people repeatedly respond to you can become information about who you believe you are. If people constantly treat you as the responsible one, you may begin seeing yourself that way. If they treat you as the difficult one, you may eventually start looking for evidence that they're right. And if someone repeatedly rejects you, that experience can even interfere with the clarity of your self-concept, particularly in people who are highly sensitive to rejection. Experimental and diary research has found that rejection and relationship conflict can reduce self-concept clarity in people high in rejection sensitivity. So sometimes, you aren't simply discovering who you are. You're collecting reflections from parents, friends, partners, enemies, society. And eventually, you mistake those reflections for your identity. That's why someone can spend years saying, "This is just who I am," when what they really mean is, "This is who I've learned to become." But there is one final paradox. The fact that you change around different people doesn't necessarily mean there is no real you. It may mean the opposite. Perhaps the deeper version of yourself isn't one fixed personality. Perhaps it's the part of you that can observe all of these versions, without being completely controlled by any one of them. The confident you, the insecure you, the quiet you, the ambitious you, the people-pleasing you, the angry you. They're all real experiences. But none of them necessarily contains the whole person. And maybe that's why the question, "Who am I?" is so difficult to answer. Because you're not looking at a finished object. You're looking at something that is constantly being shaped by memory, relationships, environment, expectations, and choice. So the next time you notice yourself becoming a completely different person around someone, don't immediately ask, "Which version of me is fake?" Ask something more disturbing. What does this version of me know about the environment that the other versions don't? Because maybe your different selves aren't proof that you don't know who you are. Maybe they're evidence that you've been adapting to the world for so long that you forgot to notice who was doing the adapting. And perhaps the real question isn't, "Which version of me is the real one?" It's this: "Who am I when I no longer need to become anyone else?"